family today who have come at this time, the 51st year since Mother Singleton was laid to eternal rest, to rededicate this resting place with a marker we feel is proper and fitting the deep pride we have in our hearts for her. It was 1 year ago, on the last day of NIACOA's conference, that a cadre of brothers stood here with heartfelt tributes to Mother Singleton. I recall taking pictures of the marker that was here then, and brothers standing attendant around it. It was here then that we thought there should be a more proper gravesite setting. And surely a few months following that, consistent with these feelings, Brother President Mason charged NIACOA to form a small committee to work on such a project, a replacement marker, and to have it ready for the next anniversary of her decease. As NIACOA historian, I was already charged with NIACOA's work on upkeep of grave sites of jewels who had lived in New York State. The Rho Lambda and Delta Epsilon chapters were asked to work with me on the committee to move this project forward. In our search for the best designer of a headstone, we selected Robert Silkworth in Baltimore, Maryland to design the new headstone. We knew it was out of state, but we were willing to have and keep our high standards and have that work shipped here to Forest Lawn Cemetery. To meet the expense, Brother President Mason called for contributions from brothers attending the General Convention in Chicago this past June, and brothers responded generously on that first call. The work on the headstone was carefully considered, scrutinized, and monitored, and had input from the brothers and descendants. We are humbled and pleased by all that has been done to bring the work to a fabulous finish befitting our beloved mother, Annie C. Singleton. Thank you again for joining us today.
When we arrived here last year, and we did our dedication for Annie Singleton, as I was telling Brother Dalton when we came here, the first thing the brothers of Rho Lambda and Delta Epsilon did was look at us and said, what are you going to do about this headstone? And we moved forward with that program and getting this day done. With all the brothers of NIACOA, we were able to successfully complete this project, and all the brothers of the fraternity. It's one thing to bury somebody, but it's another thing to bury your mother. All of us in this fraternity know who Annie Singleton is. There is not one brother walking this planet that's not been influenced by the story of Annie C. Singleton. So when you put a gravesite to it, it has to be befitting who she is. She's looking down on us right now, thankful for the work that the fraternity has done. And like every other mother, she stands proudly about the things we've done. But like every other mother, she said there's still room for improvement. So when you leave here today, brothers, remember that Annie Singleton saw the best in Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. But she still sees more in us, in each and every one of us. She took young men into her house that were college students at Cornell and saw the best in them. So now what I'm saying to all of you is continue to be the best alphas that you can be, so that she can one day, when you reach your eternal rest like we all will, say to you, job well done. Thank you.
Good afternoon, brothers.
Good afternoon.
There's enough that hasn't been said about the mother of the fraternity. I remember reading the history book and learning about her contributions to our beloved fraternity. The thing that we all have to really keep in mind is that the selfless dedication that she gave us allows us to be here at this particular time over 100 and some years later as a fraternity. We boast and brag about Alpha, but a lot of times we forget the foundation, what it's truly all about. I'm blessed with the family for allowing her or allowing us to rededicate this stone. In addition to that, it would be remiss if the Brothers of Alpha East doesn't acknowledge our General President for his selfless dedication to making every brother remember the history of our beloved fraternity. I don't know how many grave sites, how many general presidents, past general presidents that you visited, but I do know that he said he would go see all of them. So this right here, a dedication like this is selfish on his behalf, and it's up to us to live up to the legacy that the mother of the fraternity left for us. So to Brother Mason from the Eastern region, the 158 chapters in the Eastern region, across the world, in South Africa, London, Bermuda, and Germany, we would like to say thank you for allowing us to remember who we are so that we can keep living the dream that the jewels set for us. And I know right now, Mother Singleton, along with the 7 jewels, are looking down at us right now, and they're all shedding a tear to make sure and know and making us remember that what matters most. And what matters most is this brotherhood. Thank you.
Seven young descendants of former slaves found themselves on the campus of Cornell University in the fall of 1905. 7 young African-American men, just like the ones before you, with the desire to better themselves and to advance their families and communities, found themselves in the city of Ithaca, New York, looking for housing because the campus, though it admitted African-American students, would not allow them to reside on this campus. 7 young men, many of whom had never left home before, found themselves with the only worldly possessions that they owned in foot lockers and suitcases, looking for somewhere to call their home away from home. And as they walked up a hill on East State Street, they passed by a house with the numbers 411. And I like to believe and think that as they walked by that house, they could feel emanating from the roof and the doors and the windows was the warmth and the love of Archie and Annie Singleton. Both Archie and Annie Singleton had arrived in Ithaca in 1904 and realized that there were young students at Cornell who needed somewhere to stay. And so they decided that in an upstairs bedroom, they would devote that to any student, male or female, who desired a place to call home. And so that fall of 1905, Robert Harold Ogle, who had come from Washington, D.C., became one of Mrs. Singleton's boarders and, even more importantly, one of her boys. It was also that same time that C.C. Poindexter began to gather these young men residing in boarding houses and living in the fraternity houses to meet and discuss the possibility of becoming closer in bond through social studies and literary club and holding meetings at various residences in Ithaca, including the Singleton household. And so in an upstairs bedroom, according to Jewel Ogle, the idea was birthed that Alpha Phi Alpha would be born. And so Annie Singleton became endeared into the hearts, the souls, and the minds of these 7 young men. And now, some 106 years later, the name of Annie C. Singleton is symbolic to every alpha man who has ever crossed the burning sands. It is a name that when we hear it, we smile because we know that she is the beloved mother of this fraternity. And so it is no coincidence that on this very cool, brisk fall day, that we find ourselves here in Buffalo, New York, to celebrate her wonderful life, but to reset in stone this marker that would allow us not to forget Annie Singleton, but also not to forget the story of our jewels. Perhaps some of us remember the story out of Exodus, when the people were moved by faith, headed to the promised land, crossing that barren river, and they were told to find 12 stones and to set those stones that they would become a reminder, a marker, to remember how far we've come and that we should not forget this journey. So my brothers and sisters, we have gathered here today from all the parts of this area and as far as Atlanta, Georgia, to say to Mother Singleton that we have not forgotten you, that we remember the warm meals that you served. We remember the scoldings that you gave to the jewels, particularly Jewel Tandy, who was like some of you brothers. And I'll just leave it at that. We remember the nurturing and the push that she gave these young men who felt that they couldn't continue, didn't have the funds, didn't have the support. And she said that the world is depending on you, paraphrasing and quoting. And so these men graduated from Cornell University, but even more so, they inspired a generation of young men and young women to create organizations called the Divine Nine. And so not only should Alpha Phi Alpha celebrate Mother Singleton, but all of Greekton should celebrate this sainted mother who gave and nurtured and provided the support. And so I am honored as the 33rd General President to stand with my friend and colleague on the board, Brother Sean McCaskill, the Vice President of the Eastern Region, the District Director of NIACOA, Brother Lucian Metalis, the President of Rolanda and the President of Delta Epsilon, both who will serve as the caretakers of this memorial in this great city, and to have the distinguished mayor, because Alpha does produce leaders, to have the distinguished mayor, Brother Brown, to be with us and to welcome us into this city means a great deal. This distinguished historian and one who really pushed and led this project, Brother Ray Dalton. But even more importantly, we're going to ask Brother Tony Haywood if he would come and join us, to have the great-great-nephew of Mother Annie Singleton, a young man who is not an alpha yet. And I say this because his grandfather was the 19th General President of Alpha, the Honorable Judge Miles Page, the first African-American magistrate judge for the state of New York. But his daddy happened to be an Omega. And so there's been some family issues that Tony and I are trying to resolve. But I think I have him closer to the Alpha end than the Omega end, but we'll see. But to have him here as a living witness and a blood relative to share with us in this historic dedication. And so, my brothers, I would ask that you would repeat these words following my recitation of this statement. You would say, we dedicate this marker to Mother Singleton. For opening up your home at 411 East State Street,
we dedicate this marker to Mother Singleton.
For allowing the colored students to have a place as a refuge from home.
We dedicate this marker to Mother Singleton.
For providing home-cooked meals and a place to lay their heads.
We dedicate this marker to Mother Singleton.
For allowing the young men who will become the founders of Alpha Phi Alpha to have a place to meet.
We dedicate this marker to Mother Singleton.
For urging and pushing our beloved jewels to graduate from Cornell University and to pursue their dreams.
We dedicate this marker to Mother Singleton.
For attending the 1939 General Convention in New York and accepting the honor and title of Mother of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity.
We dedicate this marker to Mother Singleton.
For inspiring hundreds of thousands of Sphinxmen, initiates, aspirants, during their journey to find the light of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity,
We dedicate this marker to Mother Singleton.
Brothers, this is a magnificent day. Alpha Phi Alpha is an organization of monuments and men. Throughout our sacred and storied history, we have dedicated and paid tribute to many great men and great women. In 1921, we went to Laurel, Maryland, and we visited the final resting place of our posthumous brother, Frederick Douglass. A year later, we went to Dayton, Ohio, and we visited the monument and the memorial to Paul Lawrence Dunbar. In 1963 in Boston, we visited the memorial to the first African-American Civil War infantry troop, the Boston 54. And throughout that time, wherever we have been, we have paid tribute and respect. And then, on Friday, August the 24th, in the year of our Lord 2011, Alpha men converged on the city of Washington, D.C., and erected a monument and a memorial to our beloved brother and icon, Brother Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a monument that took 28 years of Alpha's blood, sweat, and tears to build, a monument that this fraternity gave to the world so that others could come on the mall and be inspired and dream. And so in this year of great dedications of monuments, we come now to dedicate this monument to our beloved mother. And here to tell us and to bring tribute and a response on behalf of the family is the great-great-nephew of Mother Singleton, Mr. Attorney Tony Haywood. Let's give him a round of applause.
President Mason, distinguished brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. It is my honor to convey the sincere greetings, blessings, and appreciation of the descendants of the late Honorable Miles A. Page, my maternal grandfather, the nephew of Annie C. Singleton, and your 19th General President. They are my mother, Virginia Elizabeth Page Haywood, my aunt, Barbara Page Randall, my first cousin, Karen Randall, and her children, and my grandfather's great-grandchildren, Randall Scott Hines and Paige Hines. I also convey greetings from the Honorable James Shaw, nephew of Miles Page, and the great-nephew of Annie Singleton. I never had the opportunity to meet the woman my grandfather called Aunt Anna, and the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha know affectionately as the mother of Alpha, for the role she played in supporting the efforts of the Seven Jewels and bringing Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity to life. She was the sister of my great-grandmother, Laura Coleman Page, whose mother, Sydney, was a former slave of American Indian and Caucasian ancestry and had 6 children. Like my grandfather and his parents, Anna Coleman was born in Montgomery, Alabama. She attended school in North Carolina and became a registered nurse. She lived and worked in Ithaca, of course, Ohio, and Buffalo. By all accounts, she was a woman of strong will, generous and caring, but no wilting flower. As my cousin James recalls, she would not hesitate to tell people off. She and her husband, Archie Singleton, had no children of their own, but she was beloved by a host of nieces and nephews, including my grandfather and his sister Ruth Hall, who looked after her in her later years in Buffalo. Knowing how much my grandfather loved his Aunt Anna, and how deeply devoted he was to his beloved Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, I'm supremely confident that Miles A. Page would be gratified by the abiding affection Alpha shows for Annie Singleton, including through today's dedication of a new grave marker bearing her designation by the fraternity as Mother of Alpha Phi Alpha. If indeed he is looking down on us today, I am certain that my grandfather is smiling broadly, and that brings his descendants great satisfaction and joy. Thank you for the opportunity to deliver these remarks and to be with you today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. These yellow roses here were placed in tribute by the Haywood and Randall family, and we're very much appreciative. I'm going to ask the president of Delta Epsilon if you would join, brothers, if you all would. As we prepare to, Tony, Mayor, kind of squeeze in, and we want everybody to grab a piece of the cloth, and on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Well, today was a wonderful event, the dedication of the headstone for Annie C. Singleton, the mother of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. As mayor of the city of Buffalo and as a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, it was an honor to welcome members of the fraternity, including our general president, Herman Skip Mason Jr., and other members of the fraternity from not only locally but from around the country who came for the dedication of the headstone in honor of Mrs. Singleton, the mother of the fraternity, who opened her home to the founders of the fraternity in 1905. The fraternity was founded later in 1906. She certainly is a historic figure for Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, but in general a historic figure, and to have this ceremony in Forest Lawn Cemetery, which is on the National Register of Historic Places, where many figures in American history are buried, is certainly very fitting and a tribute to the memory of Mrs. Singleton, who did so much to assist and support the young men who founded Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, the first African-American Greek letter organization in the country, which led to the founding of other Greek-lettered fraternities and sororities founded by African-American men and women.
Today is, for me, it's a very special day for me, and that's kind of selfish, and I'm normally not a selfish person. It just made me reminisce back to 1990 on the campus of Indiana University of Pennsylvania, when 8 young men was learning the history of our dear fraternity, and now to be sitting here and being at the dedication of this headstone to the mother of our fraternity is unbelievable. And to understand that Alpha is so much more bigger than just a chapter, and knowing that we change lives, and that's what's the most important thing to me. And knowing that the mother of fraternity, Miss Singleton, she changed a lot of people's lives, and just to be here to be able to say thank you, that's real important to me.
Well, I am just exhilarated to stand here in Buffalo to have witnessed the dedication of this beautiful marker for Mother Annie Singleton. I think brothers know me as the graveyard cemetery visiting president, and I just have a thing for us touching these stones, going and paying tribute to their final resting places. And brothers will be absolutely proud of the marker for Mother Annie Singleton that you helped to pay for through a contribution in Chicago at the convention. It is a magnificent marker. It was a wonderful dedication today. Lots of brothers came out on this brisk fall, autumn day in Buffalo, New York. Special thanks to Brother Lucia Metalis, the district director of NYACOA, and Brother Raymond Dalton, especially from Ithaca, Iota Lambda, and the historian for NYACOA for coordinating, helping to select the various designs for the monument and really coordinating this effort, and to Brother McCaskill, the Vice President of the Eastern Region, and Brother Alexander for their tremendous support of this project. This is what Alpha is about. Not only do we develop leaders, we forge ahead, but we look back and we remember and we touch those things that have inspired us. And we hope that the brothers will, when they're visiting Buffalo, will come by the Forest Lawns Memorial Cemetery and to pay tribute to this grand lady we know and knew as Mother Annie Singleton. And I'm just very proud that we were able to do this today.